Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, everybody, or good evening, whatever time you're watching the program. Glad that you're joining us today, and we have a very special guest, Mo Bartley. And just prior to the taping of our show, Tony, who's back with us, and Mo were talking about, well, Mo was relating a story about she was running today, and she mentioned to this person she ran into on the trail about being on the show, and he said something about age, and that got a discussion going between the two of them about age and the group of age group that they're in, and also prior to that there was another little cute little discussion going on that Mo anointed Tony with and gave him a title and so forth. But anyway, any event, Mo is here. It has nothing to do with age or gender is the name of the show, but Mo is young, a young gal who has an interesting story and stories. But before we get into talking about her and mental toughness, she's a prime example. And I see that we're going to have an interruption, is that our guests are coming in. We have, Mo has fans, and the fans are coming into the show, and they're just getting directions now. They're handing their tickets to the ticket taker, and they'll be coming in.
Being searched.
They'll be coming in shortly. So if there's a little noise coming in, it's the fans. Thank you, fans. Any event, so Mo's going to talk about mental toughness, but before that, there's a quote that I ask our guests to talk about and to relate how the quote pertains to you in your life. And then Tony said, "This is my favorite quote." So we're going to have Tony talk about this quote also.
Oh, good.
This is a great. It is. It's your favorite. It's your favorite.
It is my favorite.
This is by Samuel Beckett. And it's, "Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better." He loves us. So, but let's start with you, Mo. How might this relate to you, if it does?
Oh, yeah. I don't know how it could not relate to anybody who likes to put themselves out there and challenge themselves, directly or indirectly. Life brings all kinds of challenges, and we're not always on top of our game. We are going to fail. Failures, gosh, been lots of them, personal, running, professional. I would like to say that successes have been more than failures, but I've learned from every failure. And I think that makes you a much stronger person. As one of my bosses said, you acquire character that way. So yeah, I feel that it does pertain to me in a lot of different ways. Great quote. Great quote.
Okay. Tony, why don't you add a little bit of, because you love the quote too.
I do love it, because you learn so much from failure. I don't dissuade it. I don't look at it as a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
I go out and I find, and like I told Frank on the way, sometimes I'll fail on purpose just to see what will happen on different things. But no, I don't look at it as a negative at all when I fail at something. Because if I don't fail, I just didn't try. I didn't set my goal high enough or try higher.
That's a good way to look. That's a good way to look at it.
You know.
So would you define a failure then as not succeeding for a goal, or not accomplishing a goal, or missing?
Well, it could be. Sure, it could be. It could be a time, like if you're talking about running. I usually set a goal for a time, in my head. And if I make it, great. If I don't, I'll figure out why.
Would that be the failure then?
That'd be the failure.
Okay.
You know, it's nothing tragedy. It doesn't upset me. I kind of look forward to it sometimes,
Well,
actually.
and I would have to think, in my, personal experience, it makes you try even harder.
Yes, it does.
So
yeah.
it's a good thing. It's a really
Okay.
good thing.
Would you define the failure the same way then? Not
Yeah, I
completing
would.
a
I
goal?
can totally relate to what Tony's saying and feeling.
So do you also then set a time in your head for a race that you're going to do a time, or what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, and especially when I was on top of my game.
You're not on top of your game?
I feel like I'm on top of my game for my age. I'm totally up on top of my game.
Okay.
But I have learned a lot too, getting to this age, so to speak.
She's not even in Tony's age group.
Not yet, but I'm getting close. And I'm going to embrace that, okay? So it'll be 30. Anyway, yeah, I used to set a goal. I used to set a time goal. Not so much in the ultras. The ultras are a little bit more difficult to set time goals, although I do know that when I came back to run Western States for the second time, I wanted to break 24 hours. I was going to break 24 hours or I was going to die trying to do it. And I did. The first Western States I ran 24 and a half. And, I didn't look at that as a failure. I looked at that as a very successful race, especially for being such a novice out there.
What year was that?
That was 1990. 1990 was my first
few
Western.
years ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago. Maybe it was 91. Wow, I'd have to look at all my stuff.
Okay.
I don't memorize things. I know certain things about my running, but I don't memorize every race or every PR, or, any of that. I have a lot of very fond memories from all of my 100-mile races. They were probably some of the best times I had out there. Times not being time, I'm talking about the whole experience of the race. Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, so the second time I ran Western States, which was in 93, I did go under 24. However, I ran 23:56, and if you want to see somebody burning up that track out there, it was me. So, but what a great experience. So, and then things progressed from there.
What were some of your other 100-mile experiences that you really enjoy or meant a lot to you?
Well, I'm really lucky to say I ran 700s. I finished every single one, and they were all very special. 1992, I ran Leadville, and I still looked at myself as very much being a novice and learning. I spent a lot of time training that season up in the high country, and for whatever reason, I was able to juggle a pretty rough work schedule along with putting in probably about 80 miles a week, and my body handled it very well. I went back to Leadville, and I ended up being third woman overall. And I was very pleased with that, and Leadville was a real unique experience out there. The race directors at that time were fabulous, great group of people. The volunteers were awesome.
In what way?
Oh, they were just so friendly and so, homey. It was like you weren't traveling that distance. It was just like, welcome, It was great. A little bit, maybe a little bit different than Western, not in a in a better way or anything like that, because Western's always been my favorite ever 100-miler. But just very, very nice hometown people. It was great, really great. I came back to Western, let's see, 93, 94, I went out to Wasatch. Wasatch was a real interesting 100 for me. I never saw an inch of the course. At Leadville, I'd gotten out there 10 days before, so I was able to run a lot on the course and see all the different points of interest. And I was able to go up to like Mount Massive and Mount Albert and do a lot of real high altitude, hiking.
What is the altitude, Leadville? What?
I think you reach, oh my gosh, you're up over 11.
Okay.
Town is like at 9 or 10,
Okay,
yeah, you go up the steps and you're out of breath and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to run 100 miles in this altitude? But it all works out. And the country out there was just gorgeous. So anyway, so 94, I went back to Wasatch, hadn't seen an inch of the course, had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had a really good crew with me and I had really good pacers. And I ended up becoming second woman, and I ran 24:12 back there. Laura Vaughn, and I ran almost the whole race together, and Laura and I have always been really, really good friends. And Laura ended up for the first time after, I can't remember how many years she had done Wasatch, she finally was the first woman to break 24 hours. And she ran, you know, high 23:50 something. So it was a great run. Country was spectacular out there, and that was totally successful. I had never felt that great at 100 before either. So it's a really good experience. My one pacer did get run over by a herd of goats, which was pretty comical.
Okay.
And actually, a lot of you guys know him as Rick Spady, and Rick had won Wasatch one time and won Leadville, and Rick saved my butt out there by knowing the trail. And Rick got run over by a herd of goats. And when he picked me up again at another point in the race, he had little goat prints all over his shirt. It was pretty comical. So anyway, and down the road, I think I eventually bought him a shirt that had goat prints on it too. Anyway, it was fun. It was very fun. It was a great experience for all of us out there. And then I came back to Western and ran Western in '95. Had a fabulous race. That was the year of so-called fire and ice. There was only 4 of us women who buckled that year. I think there was 32 of us. I don't know, it's all in the stats, that went under 24. And we had snow for, 28 miles that year, 95. Yeah, but it was a great race for me. It was one of the first hundreds where I ended up having some stomach distress early on, like at mile 35. And it passed, and I never had another bad moment out there.
Well, the story I remember you told me had to do with milk.
Oh, yes, milk. Milk was my best friend. And I owe that all to Dennis Herr, and a lot of you probably do remember Dennis. He was way back in the day. But Dennis was actually working at the aid station, Cal 2, with Elliot Eisenbud. He might have been with Elliot Eisenbud that year. Anyway, I came into Cal 2, and I was feeling horrible. And it was hot. This was '93. And I had a great pacer. Les Nightingale was my pacer that year. We came in. I was distraught. I was so distraught. I felt so horrible. And Dennis sat me down. He poured this glass of milk, and he said, "Mo, just drink this, and I promise you're going to feel better." And I'm looking at these guys, and I'm thinking, I am going to be so sick to my stomach. And he goes, you have nothing to lose unless you have nothing. I did. And I drank milk, and I drank the whole thing. And I'm not kidding, I don't know what it was, but within 5 minutes, I was like a new person. And so Dennis packed me off with my water bottle full of milk and ice cubes. And after that experience at all my hundreds, I always had milk. And I know everybody out at Brown's Bar, they would always have like milk for me out there. It was really special. It kind of became a thing out there. I guess I should have done one of those Who's Got Milk commercials, at that point in time. But anyway, yeah, that was a lifesaver. That and then ice cream. So whatever, between the fat and the cream, whatever it did, it would settle my stomach. So I was good to go. And I buckled that year under 24, so it was awesome.
Good.
Oh,
Yeah,
very good.
That was good.
Very good.
I blame it all on the milk.
Good. Any particular brand of milk?
I don't remember that. I really do not remember. I just know it was whole milk. So.
You mentioned that there have been some professional failures. What were you thinking?
I really don't have that many professional failures, so to speak. I would like to say that maybe I could have done more with my medical profession, although right now I feel very, very happy and very successful with what I've done.
Well, tell us a little background.
I think I probably should have furthered my education. I would have loved to become a nurse practitioner and done a little bit more, or even have gone on to med school. I just, at the point in time when I was in college and trying to finish my degree and everything, I had to work. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have the benefit of really just going, okay, I'm just going to get through, 4 more years of schooling and do what it takes. I had to get out there and work. And as time went on, I kept thinking, oh, there's going to be a time when I'm going to go back to school and kind of relook at things. Well, my life got very busy and very full of other things. And so I have no regrets down that road at this point in time. And I guess because I'm, a year and a half from kind of retirement, now I'm really glad the way things turned out, and probably my life would have been a lot different. And I have been very, very lucky in my life. So no regrets. Just, you know, looking at things a little bit different back
So
then.
what would you give anybody advice about being in
Oh.
college, career?
Well, I think college is wonderful. I also think vocational schools are wonderful. And I also feel that you have to follow your heart. You know, we work really hard in this country. And I think a lot of people lose sense of so-called smelling the roses. I hate to use that cliche, but it's true. Sometimes it takes a real reality check to make us slow down and really understand that there's a lot more out there than just to working really, really hard and making a lot of money. Number one, your health is so important. And, you know, unfortunately, I've had a lot of friends, and more recently than anything, that have lost their lives due to illness and that type of thing. And I think the one thing that they all said was, wow, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had had more time to play. I think
at the end.
it's always at the end, and I don't want to be one of those people. So, you know, I think I've learned to play a lot more too. And that's why I married a younger husband, heck. No.
Okay.
And that's another good thing with all my running. That's how my husband and I met too, you know. So you know, running changed my life with a lot of things, and I'm so fortunate that it did.
So when did you start running?
I started late in life, I feel. You know, I graduated high school in 1973, so I'm really dating myself, okay?
From where?
Chatsworth High School. I grew up in the Valley in Southern Cal. Yeah, and I was actually probably one of the original Valley girls, whatever you want to call them back then.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Can you give us a little Valley Girl talk?
Wow. You know. But 1972 is when Title IX came through, so I was kind of after that, and then we really didn't have a lot of women's sports. I mean, we were allowed to play a little bit of basketball, a little bit of baseball. I remember a couple of things, but, you know, I was always a very active gal, and I always had horses to ride. That was another fun thing. So getting back to your question, when did I start running? I started running when I was about 31, 32 years old. So a little bit
So
later
you're
in
out of
life.
college.
Oh yeah, I'm out of college. I've been married. You know,
Are you still in Southern California?
I had just recently moved up here. I moved up here in 1984. So I turned 30 in 1985. So I started running right after that. And part of the reason why I started running up here was I was riding horses a lot at that point in time.
Okay.
And I started meeting so many people out here that were so involved in the ultra world and ride and tie. And that's actually what got me hooked into the running. I always, even as a small child, always wanted to be a runner. I ran with everything, you know, but to think, and I was always very active, so I was always athletic, and I was always in fairly good shape with aerobics classes and whatever else was back then, you know.
Aerobics that far back?
Aerobics, yes. I mean, I'm not as old as Jane Fonda, but my gosh, she was a hero. She looks pretty fabulous. But anyway, so I always had the physical fitness side. I think I had some good genes with all that. But anyway, so my running kind of took off, and one thing led into another, and before you know it, I was signed up to do CIM, was my very first marathon in 1986.
How much running had you done prior to that first marathon?
Not very much. And
Which
boy,
means what?
Oh, I suffered. My first marathon, it took me 5 hours to run, and I was beat to. I was beat to
86
heck.
wasn't the year it was.
Yes, it was.
raining
It
and
was a
blowing.
horrible rainstorm.
Yeah, right, because I was there. I
You were there
remember
too,
that.
but I didn't
That's-
know you then. You know.
So
No,
you
you
ran
didn't.
that too?
I bailed.
You
Six
bailed?
Mile
Bailed?
16, I stopped
Oh.
up at the corner. I said, "Get me out of here."
Yeah,
This is
no.
nuts.
Well, see, there you go. It was my
Yeah.
first marathon. I couldn't bail. I was going to finish whether,
I
you
did
know.
it the year before, so I didn't
Yeah.
have to
Oh, yeah.
finish.
Yeah, and you know, CIM's always been a great marathon. We're lucky to have that here. But yeah, so anyway, I finished, and then I thought, boy, I better start training if I'm going to be a runner, you know. And then one thing got into another. I started doing a lot of riding, and I got into the ride and ties, pretty heavy duty. And
What year was that?
let me think.
Roughly.
Okay, so that was 86. So I probably started doing ride and ties in 87, 88.
So that'd be up here then, right?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Okay.
And I was actually traveling to the Bay Area to do some. There was a great group of people that I, hooked up with and became really good friends. And pretty soon, my girlfriend and I, Jane, who lived over in San Rafael area, her and I were hooking up all the time, and we were one of the top women teams out there.
So this is in the late 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When did you start, Tony, ride tie?
Oh, I did it with Jeff for 5 years, but it was in the 90s.
The 90s? So it was after Mo started then?
Yeah, and I was involved with ride and tie for quite a while. And then once I started really getting involved in the running, and then jumping into the ultras so quickly, because I kind of did it all backwards. I never ran short distance. I went from marathon into 50K took me 3 years before I finally got my nerve up to put in for Western States. I wanted to be darn sure I could finish a 50 mile and feel like I could still go on. So, and yeah, I worked the race. Actually, I started working Western States, gosh, in 85, I think was the first year I worked it. I was always at the river. And I thought these people were insane. I was like, my gosh, what possesses you? And then all of a sudden I started thinking, whoa, what a challenge. Well, yeah, look what happened. So anyway, that's kind of where it all started back there.
So what would your definition of mental toughness be?
Well,
and how would that apply to you?
Mental toughness has probably applied to me once again in all areas of my life. I think it's an acquired skill. I think as a runner, and especially for any distance actually, you've got to dig really deep and know that, say for instance in the 50s and the 100-milers, you're going to become fatigued. You're going to have little things that hurt. But actually sucking it up on the track for a 1500 hurts a lot too, and you do have to go deep in there too. The 100-milers and the 50, obviously you got to stay mentally tough for a very long period of time. And I always found that mental toughness is always, if you can put your mind on something else besides the amount of pain you're in at the moment, it's always a really good thing. And it's a really hard skill to acquire that. So I was always trying to, and I always had great pacers out there. So we would always start talking about something that was really fun or something that was kind of probably a little bit nasty.
Such as?
Oh, sex, whatever it happened to be. Whatever we could come up with at the moment. It was all fun. Gossip about other people, what the heck. But we had great stories. And, so mental toughness, the other thing with mental toughness is, when you're on top of your running game or your professional game or your personal life, that's easy. It's when things are kind of down and out, when you have a really bad injury, and you can't run, and you've got to take a lot of time off, and you're feeling pretty left out of everything. I had Achilles surgery when I first turned 50 years old, and I was out of it I couldn't run for about 4 to 5 months. And so looking back on all that, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, number one, I got the summer off from work, and I ended up going into the weight room extensively because that's what I could do. I ended up helping with, we were doing a house remodel in our home in Cool at that point in time, and I got to help all the guys, and I did all the painting and the sanding, and I just did so many other things, and I started getting my creative juices back about colors and different things that I hadn't even thought about for so long because I'd been so busy. And when I came back to my running, it was fresh again, and I was totally wanting to get out there and compete again and mix it up with everybody. And in December of that year, I ended up on the national podium for cross country. I was third in my age group, and I was ecstatic.
What does that mean?
Third in an age group at nationals.
For what distance?
Cross country. Women's cross country is generally at nationals a 6K distance,
6K.
which is a hair under 4 miles.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and my orthopedic surgeon just kept telling me, please don't do anything stupid, and I didn't. I really did what he told me to do, and I'm very grateful. I mean,
so you recovered?
I recovered completely,
Totally.
and I have never had another pain in my Achilles since then. But I owe it to a very good surgeon too.
So that was lucky then, in some ways.
Oh yeah.
Because I hear many stories of people that don't
Right.
recover.
Right. I hear a lot of people don't do what they're supposed to do either with their rehab.
So what
phase.
did you do to rehab? How did you
Well,
handle that?
number one, I didn't run a step until he told me I could. And I think that in itself saved my butt. And he put me in this restrictive cast that I couldn't do a whole lot except that I could walk and I could do gardening and I could do that. I could go to the weight room. Eventually I got into the pool, but I couldn't use my foot. I couldn't move my foot like that. So I had to get on the noodle and do all the aerobics exercise with all the people that were about 70 and older. And let me tell you, I was totally wore out, and I had a whole new outlook on people who are over 70 and they're doing their pool exercises because I was wiped out. And the thing that was so hard is I couldn't drive for 3 months, so I had to rely on friends, my husband. Can we go to the grocery store now? I mean, it was interesting, but it was a great experience, and I really, looking back on that, I have really good memories. And at that point in time, too, I was also coaching cross country here. So when the fall season started,
At the high school?
At the high school, Placer High School.
Placer High School.
Yeah, and I was working with Randall Fee, who was the head coach, and I was his assistant, and John Krogsgrove was the other assistant, and we had a great group. We had a lot of fun, and I was kind of in charge of, when we were doing track workouts to be able to get out there in time, or if we were over on the soccer fields doing grass workouts. So, I was very useful, but I couldn't run with the kids at that point in time either. I had to wait till I came back with everything. So it was all good. And we had a great season.
So how long were a track coach?
I coached for Placer for 7 years, cross country, and then 2 of those years I also coached track with Rick Foley for 2 years out of that. And then as everything seems to happen, my time ended up becoming, I just ran out of time. And, probably I'll go back to maybe getting involved with a high school coaching program again after I do retire out of my nursing profession. So that's good, but I'm still coaching. And I'm actually coaching out of Fleet Feet J Street. Tim Tweetmeyer and I put on all their trail training programs, and we have 3 of them now. And this is our 5th year. We started off with 1 program, and
that's listed on the credits.
Yes,
yeah.
And trail running has taken off. I mean, back when we all started running trail, I think I always looked at us as like we were the little red-headed stepchildren. Like everybody was like, why would you run trail? Why would you run 100 miles? Why would you do this? It was always why? And now all of a sudden it's like, people can't get enough of it. And
can't get in runs.
No, I mean, look at all of our runs. It's like, what do you mean they're already full? So trail running has really taken off, and so this program, Fleet Feet asked me to put their program together for them 5 years ago, and we did.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so we kind of had this great vision that trail running was going to be the next big thing with running, and it has, and it's really cool to be a part of all that. So what we've done is we have put together 3 trail training clinics a year. We have a spring program now. It's like a 7 or 8 week program, and we also put on several trail running races. Our big one in May is Dirty Secret, which is held over in Cool at the Olmsted Loop. Last year we had 800 runners. We have 2 different distances. We have a 10 mile, and then we also have like a 6 mile. So there's something for everybody out there. We then go into another trail running program, which is 9 weeks.
Was running on the sly, was that one
yes,
of them?
That was one
yes,
of them,
yes, which you guys were both there, and you
Yeah.
both loved because we did such a great job out there.
We just love that.
Yeah, so yeah, we took over running on the sly. Gosh, it was either 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I can't remember. Time flies. And so our big trail running program.
He was trying.
So anyway, that's what's happened. And Blood, Sweat, and Beers has also become a very favorite run with people because they
Blood,
get
Sweat, and...
Blood, Sweat, and Beers.
Where's that?
It's held right here in Auburn.
Oh, okay.
And you get beer at the end of your race. Runners are so
Sounds
easy to
good to
please.
me.
Yeah. So, with that said, you know, our trail training programs have taken off, and we've actually had a few of our people have graduated into finishing Western States. They've done numerous 50s, 50Ks. That's not what the program's all about. It's to get people off the couch, get them outdoors, get them into beautiful places, as we all know.
So what does somebody have to do to
they
find out about it?
all they have to do is go online, go into Fleet Feet J Street down in Sacramento. You'll look at all the programs we put on, and we put on a ton of programs. We've got something for everybody down there. And they would go right into the trail training program, and it'll pull up a really cute picture of Tim, myself, and Mark. And then they all have to go, oh, let's sign up for this.
Okay.
So anyway, that's all you have to do it.
What
It's
is
a great program.
What would a training be?
A training program, our fall program is opening up this weekend. It's only Sundays. Our other two programs are Wednesday and Sunday, Wednesday evenings and Sundays. We take everybody all over different trails. You know, we hit Forest Hill, Auburn, Cool.
So you take a group to a
And
location.
how many
Yeah.
people are usually in
Well,
your...
our summer group was huge. We had like 130 people this year. And we go out and do all the prep work the day before, so we go out and mark the trails. They start off at 7 miles, and then we take them up to 13 to 14 miles in the program. Our short distance program, because we have two programs going on at the same time, they start off with 3 miles, and then they get up to 8 miles. So
Is there a time limit or
well,
time restraints or what?
we ask that all of them can run like our long distance, like 11 to 12-minute miles on the road. Trail is always so much different than pacing on the road, and it depends what kind of terrain you're in, as you guys all know. You know, I mean, when we're climbing up a mountain, we're all walking with our nose in the dirt. Our short distance, we like them to be able to go 13 to 14-minute miles, you know, give or take. And I'll tell you, some of my best clientele have been my short distance. When somebody comes up to you and says, Mo, we are so grateful for you guys. I've lost 20 pounds. I finished the 12K at Run on the Sly, and I'm 20 minutes faster than I was a year ago. Oh, and I stopped smoking. Gosh, you know, I mean, how can you not feel good that you're giving back to the sport and you're helping other people get out here and enjoy something that you so dearly loved? So I think I can speak for all the coaches. I know we try to share our passion with everybody. And of course, Tim and I go so far back, and we have so many funny stories to tell that they're totally entertained with that a lot of the times, because I think a lot of them is like, well, aren't you guys going to write a book too? So that's kind of what the program's all about.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that start? Was that through Tim or you?
No, it was pretty much Fleet Feet talking to me. I had coached for them for quite a while. I was doing, I coached their racing team back in the day, and then I was also doing a lot of personal coaching, and so I was an employee for them.
Oh, okay.
And so one thing evolved into another, and we kind of started brainstorming about things and putting things together, and it just kind of happened. I mean, I got to tell you, the people I work for at Fleet Feet, they're an extension of my family. And
But is this just the J Street store?
yes, this is J Street only. So
Because we had the manager of the Fair
Fair
Oaks.
Oaks?
oh yeah, they're great people too.
Yeah,
Very
okay.
great people.
But it's all separate.
It's all separate. Yeah,
Okay.
totally different owners, you know,
Okay.
as far as that go.
Okay.
But yeah, and I know the Roseville store, I believe they are still putting on an ultra distance coaching program, or they will be they usually start theirs, I think, in January.
Okay.
But yeah, so we all have our little niches.
So
good.
what are you doing now? Because you went back to some shorter distances. You
Yeah.
started doing your...
Yeah, I did. Well, you know, kind of what transpired was I came off the 100K team back in '98, and boy, was I banged up. You know, running 62 miles on the road, it takes a lot out of your body. And, you know, at that point in time, I was pushing 45, 46 years old, maybe not, 44, 45, I guess. Anyway, one of my big goals, and one of the things I was, you know, looking forward to, was to really mixing it up with my running. And, you know, all I knew was ultra and marathon. You know, at that point in time, my marathon I had finally run a 3:06, and I really wanted to break that 3-hour barrier. That was the one thing in my running career that I did not do. I busted under 4 for 50K. I ran a 3:56 one year, and I was really excited with that. And I thought, you know, running a sub 3 was right around the corner. Well, unfortunately, that was other injuries that came to be and stuff. So kind of, the pavement was just taking its toll on me. And so my husband, who I have been with now for 16 years, and he has actually been my coach. And I don't know if a lot of you guys know that, but when you're married to somebody and all of a sudden you're taking orders from somebody.
Well, first, I never see you run with them.
Well, I do.
You do?
But, Brian can kick my butt on any given day, although we do have a lot of fun runs together, which has been great for us. But, we had to have this kind of come to Jesus talk about, okay, I'm your coach. We're going to have a little bit of a different relationship here. And oh my
Different how?
Well, because he was going to guide me, give me workouts. He was going to be out there coaching me. He had a lot of constructive criticism to talk to me about.
Such as?
Well, my form. I ran like an ultra runner. I had my elbows out here, and I didn't pick my feet up. And how was I going to be this awesome 5K runner or track runner if I did all these things? I was used to carrying a water bottle and stuff. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, and I don't think I was that difficult. I think he likes to tell me or kind of bring that up that, yeah, maybe I was difficult at times, but we really, we've worked so well together. I mean, I have Brian to thank. The other thing that had come up was people said, you ran ultras. How do you think you're going to acquire any speed and go back and run short and fast at this point in your life? You're in your mid-40s. And well, that in itself made me want to work even harder at it, because I thought, well, I'm going to show that they're wrong, that I can do this. And so as time went on, and Brian worked with me, he worked with me really, really hard, and he got my form to where it is now. And I mean, I still have to remind myself about my form, and that's something that I also work with all my clients. Form is something that you can always rely on when you're tired. And if you have good form, you can get through a lot of different things, but you've got to remember what your good form is. And there are times when you're like, oh my gosh. So anyway, I went from being a pretty good 100-mile runner to running, becoming a pretty good 5K and 10K runner. And
Pretty good means what?
Well, pretty good. I ended up running, my PR for my 5K was like an 18:24, and this was at age 47, 48 years old. My 10K was 38:21, and I started being able to compete in national masters championships and stuff, so I traveled around the country, and I feel like I had some very successful times. And once again, it opened up a whole other opportunity in my running career. It was like a whole new group of people. I developed friends from that, and I learned a lot, and I got pretty quick out there. So cross country came along, and also track, and I was like, how am I gonna, I mean, this was a lot. And Brian was just so persistent and so helpful with everything, and so supportive. I ended up running, I got on the track for the very first time, and I was scared to death because there was no place to hide, And
How old are you at this point?
I'm 40-something, and I'm running with college girls. And I also run with a very competitive team from San Francisco with the Impalas, and I've been a part of the Impala Sisterhood since 2000. Anyway, there was a couple of my teammates out there, and man, we just like tucked in, and I ended up running like a 5:20, and I don't know how I did it.
This for a mile?
Yeah, this is 1,500 on the track, and so I was totally thrilled. I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could do this, and oh my gosh, I was jumping up and down, and so that was great. And but I worked very, very, and then cross country season came along, and cross country I kind of got addicted to. And then, of course, I started coaching cross country with the kids, and everything else kind of evolved.
So the distance for cross country?
Cross country is anywhere, us women race usually anywhere from 5K to 4.5 miles.
Is this trail or not?
Yeah, it's dirt.
Dirt.
So cross country can be a mixture of grass, trail, pavement, a little bit of pavement thrown in. Okay. Some of it can be kind of gnarly, little, a lot of descents. It's tough. Sometimes it's a golf course. So it varies. Sometimes, I was back in Columbus, Ohio one year, and it was a snow field with ice and hail and hay bales. So you never know what you're going to get. But it's fun, and it's very much a team sport. you know, and I like that part of it. I like being a part of a team,
Okay.
you know, and everybody counts out there. So that's a little bit different than ultras,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So anyway, it's been great. It's been absolutely great. I'm looking forward to going back to nationals this year, being in Bend, Oregon.
So you do cross country, and you do the 5 and 10Ks.
And I have raced a couple of half marathons. I don't do anything over half marathon anymore. I really, I haven't had a desire to on the roads. I keep thinking that I'd love to get my butt back in shape to do a 50K on the trail. Never say never. Why,
That's what
are you thinking about that too?
I haven't done one in 15 years.
Well, it's been a long time,
Yeah.
you know, but I think one of the things about the trail, I mean, it seems like every year I go out and I'll run some 20, you know, I'll go out to Western States training weekend, and I'll always run, because one of my favorite runs is from Forest Hill down to Ruckachuk, you know, and I'll go out there and run it, and, you know, I feel fine. So I think, okay, well, I could add some mileage to this and I'd be fine. I could go back to Way Too Cool or one of the other 50Ks that we all love and do it again. I just have to have the time, you know, too, with that. So, yeah, so that's kind of what my story is.
Okay. And so let's go talk a little bit about your parents. And
Well, my mom is alive and well at 83 years old. My mom,
so she's young.
she's very young. I mean, my mother is amazing. She's one of my heroes. She went through a rough spell last year. She came down with some colon cancer, and we said, okay, enough of this. Went in. My mom was amazing. They ended up resecting a large part of her colon. She had no metastatic disease, so she was good to go. She's playing golf and kicking ass out on there on the golf course. I mean, my mother's amazing at 83. I feel like my mom has always been very active. She wasn't involved in sports like I have been, but she's always been a very active person. So between her walking and her golfing and that type of thing, I think that's kept her very young.
So what was her early life like?
Ooh, it was interesting. My mom was raised on the East Coast, so was my dad. My dad passed away 21 years ago. He died fairly young. I'd say 68 is pretty young,
That's young,
and
yeah.
my dad stroked out, and it was pretty awful. Anyway, and I learned a lot from my dad. My dad was pretty hard on me growing up.
In what way?
Well, he made me very independent. And my dad was never there handing out things. He was always, you know, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get out there, young lady, and you're going to work your butt off. And at times I thought, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. But I'm very grateful for that way, the way I am now, because it did make me very independent. It made me a very strong woman. So I have a lot to thank my dad for. I'm sorry he wasn't around a long period of time. I think he would have been really proud of me with what I did with my life. So, you know, to that, my dad was one of, oh my gosh, 8 or 9 kids, Catholic family.
What caused his stroke?
Oh, well, he ended up with atrial fib, which is very common, but one of his cardiologists took him off of Coumadin.
Okay.
And he ended up developing a large blood clot behind his heart, and it went, yeah. So that was a
You
long.
know why the physician took him off?
I don't
Coumadin?
know.
No.
And I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, I realized that my dad was having problems. At that point in my life, I was living up here. I was single. I was working my butt off, and
Were they down in Southern
yeah,
California?
yeah. They retired down in Palm Desert area.
Desert,
yeah,
okay.
and they had been down in Mission Viejo stuff. So. Anyway, I didn't realize how serious it was, and I really didn't know that the cardiologist had taken him off the Coumadin. Otherwise, I would have been questioning that too. But anyway, it happened. So, consequently.
What was his lifestyle like, though? I mean, was there anything?
Well,
that could
my dad, you know, he was in World War II, so he did smoke back then. I know he quit smoking probably in his 40s, but by then a lot of damage has been done. He was a big marketing engineer for Hughes Aircraft for years, so he traveled quite a bit, but there was a lot of wining and dining going on too. So, you know, those guys tend to drink a little bit too much, and, you know, the cocktails were always flowing, so I'm sure that contributed. You know, he was a tough dude.
Was he sports oriented?
Not really. You know, I think he could have been.
Why do you say that?
Well, because of his physique and everything else, and he used to tell me when he was a young man that he used to love to run and do all kinds of things.
Okay.
You know, so.
Did he run in college or track or high school? Or?
I don't know.
But he said he liked to run.
He liked to run, but I think he just liked to be physical, not be in any type of sport. Because back then, I think he had to get through school. He had to, you know, make ends meet. So I don't think there was a lot of time. But he did take up the sport of golf.
Okay, so he came from a big family also.
Yeah, yeah, a big Catholic family. And I mean, his dad passed away when my dad was like 9 years old. So see,
From,
they were,
do you know, from
black lung.
Black
They were all coal miners back then.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
back there.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so, you know, my mom, she was fairly young. She was early 60s when my dad passed away. And, man, she just blossomed. It was kind of interesting to me. My mom had always worked when we were growing up anyway, but she had retired. And she didn't have to go back to work. We were very fortunate with that. My dad had a real good pension from Hughes. And anyway, my mom was brought up, she was the only child. And my grandparents were very, very strict Catholics. In fact, to the point where my mom just couldn't take it anymore. Anyway, I mean, she had to go to Catholic school. She had to go to Catholic college. I mean, you name it. All she did was deal with nuns. And, you know, back then they were very different than they are now. So anyway, consequently, she kind of remained in Palm Springs. She developed a very good relationship with a lot of friends down there. She played golf frequently. She was very involved. She taught disabled children to play golf. She did that for a long period of time, and then she decided that she was going to work at the USO. So she's been working at the USO now for a long time, and she loves it. You know, she's got a whole, yeah. So she's very active, and you know, I was amazed when she was in the hospital last year. The doctors kept asking me, Mo, are you sure your mom's 83 years old? And I'm like, yeah, you know, they're like, man, she's in great shape. And I'm like, well, you know, she's taking care of herself. Plus, she was a very good patient. Otherwise, I would have beat her up, you know. But she was good. So things are really good. Very thankful there.
You have brothers or sisters?
I do. I have one sister.
You do?
Yeah, I have one sister who's 2 years younger than me. She's not athletic. Her and her husband own a hair salon over, Santa Rosa area up that way. They do very well. They've got 2 children. I have a niece and a nephew, and they're both in the Coast Guard and doing very well. So, yeah, they're very family orientated. You know, they've done a lot of stuff together, and the kids are doing well. And my sister and I are like night and day. What can I say?
Who's night and who's day?
I would believe I'm night and she's day. Yeah. So.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's. You know, other than that, there's just the 2 of us, so.
You close to her?
Fairly close.
Fairly close.
Yeah. You know, we have a lot of fun when we get together. So, you know, she's, her husband recently came down with diabetes. He's half Lakota Sioux, and they're a little bit predisposed to that. But so they've been dealing with that quite a bit recently. You know, so anyway, hopefully he ended up being put on insulin, which we figured he would be, but hopefully his, you know, blood sugar numbers will come down and start evening out a little bit. So, but no, everything's going well for them.
Well, you describe your mom and your dad a little differently.
Totally
so
differently.
What brought them together? Do you have any idea? Did your
Well,
mom ever talk about it? Or?
Yes. Interesting. My mom, back in her day, she was actually, I can't mention names because this is a very well-known colonel who was in very involved, and actually he very high up there. Anyway, she was engaged to be married to this man, and she broke the wedding off 2 weeks before the wedding, which was like unheard of back in those days, and she just couldn't go ahead with it. And so then a while later, I guess one of her best friends said, Pat, we're setting you up on a blind date. And my dad was working for the FBI then.
FBI?
Yeah, a lot of stuff in my history, okay? Yeah, I couldn't get away with anything if I tried. So I guess from what my mom told me that my dad pretty much knocked her socks off. And, you know, they dated and ended up getting married, and, you know, here we are. So, yeah. And they moved, they were back on the East Coast for a very long period of time. And then we moved out to Southern California.
So you're born on the East Coast?
I was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so we moved out here when I was, let's see, 7th or 8th grade. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Did you find the school system much different?
Oh yeah, well I was going to Catholic school on the East Coast. You know, I mean, here we go again. You know, Mom, I thought you were not going to do this to us. But anyway, it was fine. Yeah, and then once we moved out here, we went to public school. Yeah, it was a lot different.
Easier?
I don't know if it was easier back then. Probably so. You know, I can't remember that far back about, you know, what I was doing back then in school. I was always a good student, so.
So you don't remember the adjustment
I don't.
to junior high? You remember your
no,
teachers' names?
I
or-
don't.
What would that suggest?
Well, you know what? I really wanted to get through school pretty fast. And, you know, it's funny that
Did you want to move from?
from Southern Cal?
No, from.
No, I didn't want to move from the East Coast.
Because?
I had a lot of good friends back then. That was very hard.
Okay.
Good, yeah, good bringing that up. That was a very hard transition for me. I think when you're in 7th and 8th grade, you started, you know, glomming onto groups, and yeah, we were a tight group back there. It was a lot of fun kids. I do have a girlfriend still who I did go to school back there, who's in Southern Cal, who we do stay in touch with, and we get laughing about a lot of that stuff. We both went to St. Joseph in Rochester, New York, you know, and it's like, but yeah, so that was an interesting transition. I seemed to do fine. I always had friends.
And your parents moved because?
My dad's job.
With?
Yeah, he ended up, oh my gosh, now you're really making me reach. I believe he went to work for General Dynamics when we moved out to Chatsworth. I think it was a huge promotion and everything else. Plus, my folks wanted to leave the East Coast. They wanted to move to California.
Cold.
You know? Yeah.
Cold. Because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
cold, yeah. Rochester's cold.
Oh, it's very cold. I remember brutal winters
So
back
we lived
there.
in Rochester or Pennsylvania?
Well, we lived in Pennsylvania, but we had moved to Rochester, New York.
Oh, you did? Okay, that's why
Yeah.
you're going to St. Joe's?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we were there for quite a while. So anyway, yeah, Southern California, and you know, my mom and dad loved California. My mom still loves California. Palm Desert's a great place for her to be. It's a beautiful area. I love going
Good
down
golfing?
there. Oh my gosh, the running's fabulous. I've got great friends down there. We run in the mountains when we get down there, and oh, it's beautiful. So
you
good
spend a
stuff.
lot of time running, don't you?
I do. I run a lot, actually.
What do you do for fun?
It is fun, you know. I mean, it is. It's always been fun, you know. But I do a lot of fun things too. You know, I love to read. I love to garden. Now I've got gardening on my street. You know, I've shown people different things how to garden. You know, and I take care of all of our little homeowners' gardening things out there.
What do you like to read?
I read all kinds of books. I haven't read Frank's book yet, though. I guess I better.
Maybe he'll sign one for you.
Yeah, maybe if I'm lucky. So yeah, I like mysteries. I like all kinds of stuff.
So what are you reading now?
Let's see. I just finished a book by Harold Coben. It was a mystery. It's good. Just finished it. One of the gals up at my favorite bookstore now, up by Raley's, you know, they have that little book.
Yes, yes,
oh my gosh, that's great up there. And so, you know, when I go in there, I can't just get one book. I've got to get like 50 million. So Sandy, who's a friend of mine who works up there, gave me this book, and she goes, "You've got to try this author." So I did, and I did enjoy his writing.
Okay.
So I'll go back and read more.
We only have a few more minutes. What would you tell, I mean, how would you motivate to get somebody off the couch? What would you say directly to either a male or female?
Well,
And would it matter as to what age they were?
no, it wouldn't matter. How do you want to live the rest of your life? You know, and especially as you get older. I think all of us have found that we
So
have.
you want to use guilt?
I'll use guilt.
Okay.
I mean, I'll tell them to get their fat butts off the couch. Totally. You know, I don't have a problem talking to people. I feel like I got a lot of good counseling through work and everything else, and also trying to promote people to get off. I'm not saying you have to become a runner, but get out there and walk and do something. The last thing you want to do is develop some horrendous disease, hypertension, diabetes, because you're overweight and because you do nothing. You know, there's really no excuse for it. You know, I don't think there's anybody out there that can say, hey, I can't go out and walk, you know, a mile or get up to a mile. I know a lot of it's hard. I know, you know, there's disabilities that lend themselves that you cannot be active. But the thing with exercise is that it's so motivating for just the way you feel about yourself, and having a social connection out there too. It's huge. You know, if you have somebody to walk with, it makes you more accountable. That's why I love the programs that we put on for Fleet Feet down there. We have our, you know, no boundaries, and you know, it's kind of a couch potato to a 5K. It's not like we're going to make you a fast runner. You don't have to do that. But, you know, take control of your life, and this is one of the things that you can take control of and feel good about yourself.
It's cheap and easy to do.
It's cheap, you know. Buy a pair of walking shoes, you know, or running shoes, and get out there and enjoy it and see. You know, I mean, how many times I get this a lot because I have people who have never been on the trails before who come out and they're like, I can't believe how beautiful it is out here. You know, all of a sudden it's like,
oh,
yeah.
you do. You see things you just will never see without being able to go out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just
Every time.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true.
well, and I totally believe that people have to be more responsible for their health. I don't care what you do for your, you know, as with your living, or you've got to be responsible for that. So, and I think exercise is one of the biggest ways you can do that.
You mentioned ride and tie and running. There's a connection there. So real quickly, what got you into ride and tie?
Well,
How did that happen?
ride and tie was, you know, I was riding a lot. I had horses back then. And so I always wanted to be a runner. And so the thing that I always would remember is, boy, I am actually doing two of the things that I'd love to do in my life, ride horses and run now.
Okay.
So that really got me into it. And plus, after moving from Southern Cal, I was riding in Southern Cal, but I wasn't a runner in Southern Cal. So I became a runner when I got up here because I was exposed to so many people who were running. And so many people were involved in ride and tie back then.
Back then. There
Yeah,
you
we
go.
had a whole group of people up here who were doing ride and tie.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, great. Well, thank you for coming. And
bet.
anybody who you'll see on the screen today, J Street, Fleet Feet, to get involved in the program that Mo, Mark, and Tim are currently running.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, you guys will love it. I guarantee it.
Right.
Yep, it's been
We
great.
should go.
Yeah, Frank, you could learn.
Well, yeah.
You'd feel like a kid out there. Well, it's funny because one of the best things out there, if you're a single male, there's tons of good-looking women.
So there you go. There you
Where do we sign?
There are more women. There are more
my
women.
gosh. Yeah,
true.
and we took a poll for 50-year-old women. I think we had probably at least 1/3 of our group last summer was over 50 women. They rule. So, yeah,
They rule.
they rule.
They rule. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yep.
so that could be motivation for some, right? So if you want to meet somebody, that's also.
Oh, yeah, I've got
a
several
good-
love connections going on out there right now.
So you
know?
you do that too. You
I'm
facilitate.
so responsible. Yeah, that kind of happened, you know, so, yeah.
Well, thank
Good
you
stuff.
for joining us.
You're
We
welcome.
certainly enjoy you and enjoy the stories,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
certainly learned a little bit. And I'm just dying to, but I won't.
I know. We all want to tell the
There's
story
a
about Tony.
There's a story about Tony, and but I'm sworn to secrecy. And
And
usually,
we ran out of time.
and usually, what's on the trail stays on
That's
the trail.
true.
But, so
That's
we're going to
true.
leave it.
It was in one of those topics you talk about when you're out there on the 100 milers.
Right.
You know?
We're going to leave it at that.